welcome back to another video. Now today, since I'm building a computer for my parents, I decided to do a video on how to build a PC. Now this will help a few of you who want to get into the PC master race, I guess, or just want to do something while they can, or just need a new computer. Okay, so this computer is not a gaming computer. It might have, this motherboard is kind of, it's a B450 motherboard, so it's kind of for gaming. But there won't be any graphics card, but I will use the Wi-Fi card here as an example. There goes the SSD. But anyway, now I'll talk about our specs. So for the CPU, we've got the AMD Ryzen 3200G APU. Now this has integrated Vega 8 graphics and will be perfect for mum and dad. It's about the right performance for an office style PC. Now for the power supply, we've got the Antec VP500P Plus. Power supply, 500 watt, 80 plus power supply. It's not the most efficient out there, but it'll be fine for them. So for the motherboard, we've got the MSI B450M Pro VDH Max. That's my old motherboard. So yeah. Wi-Fi card, we've got the TP-Link Wi-Fi card. And SSD, we've got a WD Green 480 gig SSD. Why does it keep on falling down? Doesn't matter though. We've got 480 gig SSD and a Antec case. Now this is also my old case. So yeah. Now there are all the specs. So that's about all you need. You might want, but there are optional things like an extra hard drive, like with a SSD hard drive combo. You might want a graphics card if you're into gaming and want to build a gaming computer. And there's other things that are different with this build, but anyway, that's okay. It's pretty similar. For example, like the graphics card, it's actually pretty similar to installing a Wi-Fi card, because it goes like right, for this motherboard, the Wi-Fi card goes right below where the graphics card would go. But anyway, let's get into it. Alright everyone, so this should be close to real time. It might be, there will be a few parts that I cut out because then the video would be way too long. But anyway, that should be okay. Now for tools, all I've got is 3 sizes of screwdrivers. You won't need
tweezers to tighten up the wires.
Now, the first thing you need to do is get your motherboard. Now, your motherboard will be in an anti-static bag, unlike this, because I've already used this motherboard, but I prepped it ready for the video, so it's looking a bit different inside the box, but you should get a few things like IO shield, M.2 screw, SATA cables for your, and SATA cables for your external hard drives and SSDs. Okay, now what you want to do is, if you don't have a anti-static working surface like me, a good working surface is your motherboard box. Now since I do, I'd rather just use it because it's a little harder to use since it's not flat. But if you don't have one, just use your motherboard box. You can get away with it pretty easily. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is, with these 2 brackets around the CPU socket, which is this, you need to unscrew them because they are, these are for coolers that literally, they have clips on them, and they clip around onto the CPU. Now these are for some liquid AIOs and some older CPU coolers, but for if you are installing the Wraith Stealth, or Spire, you can get rid of this. Now this is where you consult your cooler's manual to see if you need to keep them on or not. But in my case, I've got the Wraith Stealth cooler, so I don't need to. But anyway, I can uninstall them. Easy process, it's just unscrewing and then taking this off. Real time, I might be saying real time a bit loosely, but it should be, I shouldn't cut too much out. Okay, now that you've uninstalled them, just put them to the side. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to get your CPU out of the box. Now I've got the AMD Ryzen 3200G, as I said earlier in the video, so I'm just going to unbox it and get the piece of plastic that the CPU is in. We've got these. I don't think they'll need them. Okay, so here they are. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to be really careful with the CPU. Now you don't want to touch this bit, which is the heat spreader, or these pins. Don't worry, it's in the plastic still, so I'm not touching it. You don't want to touch the heat spreader or the pins on the bottom, so you want to be really careful. You want to only hold it from the sides like this, and you also want to be careful while unboxing it from the plastic. So what you want to do before you get the CPU out is this is a little, trying to think of it. I'll just say it's a little, Tokyo Drift, just kidding. It's a little, like, thing that puts the CPU down. I really can't think of it at the moment. But what you want to do to it is you want to pull it out a little bit and up. You'll notice the CPU socket moves back a little bit. And then you want to find where the arrow on this socket is. Now, the arrow on the socket is right here. It's pretty hard to see, but if you look in the corners, you'll find it. And if you look on your CPU, you'll see that that has an arrow as well, right there, if you can see it on camera. So, you want to line these arrows up, and make sure to hold the CPU really carefully still. But you want to line the arrows up really carefully. And it should just go in, it just feel around until it feels like it's gone in. You can shake it a little bit. And if you feel like it's in, gently, or actually it takes a little bit of force, so don't worry about it. Push the latch back down and in. Now you've just installed your CPU, so good job for that. Alright everyone, so this is where I might have to leave you on your own a bit because all CPU coolers are different unless they're made by the same manufacturer. Now, if you're lucky and just want to go with the stock cooler as well as me, I would recommend just going along with this. It's very easy to install because it is literally its own cooler. And it's nothing, it's really easy to install. Now, if you are using this, follow my instructions. But if you don't know how to install it, simply pull up a video of how to do it. And if you can't find it, look in your manual. I rather look at videos first because it's a bit easier to look at. Because you can see, you can actually see what it's doing. Like, you can actually see what they're doing. But, if you don't find a video, easily pull up your instructions and have a look. So this is where you're on your own a bit. Now, since a lot of you use the stock AMD coolers, I will put this in the video because if you are using it, I've got one here. So what you need to do is just unbox the cooler. Make sure not to touch the bottom because on these AMD coolers it's got thermal paste, so don't worry about having to install thermal paste because it's already on it. So, now what we want to do is we want to get the cooler, and with this motherboard you want to face this AMD logo towards the max heat spreader, so you're not interfering with the RAM. Now, all you need to do is line the screws up with the back plate holes, and it's pretty easy. Just line it up. Okay, once it's lined up, then you simply get a screwdriver and screw it in a star pattern. Now, as I mean a star pattern as in we're going to put it there, then we're gonna screw it on there. Now, if you need to let it back a bit, you can, obviously. But just once it's just wait for it to bite, and then go around. Alright, now I think it's done. So now with these AMD coolers, it's very helpful because they've got little cable management things built in, so you can use them. And you have to find a header on your motherboard that says CPU fan. Now, it's up here for me. So what I want to do is I want to line it up and plug it into the CPU fan header. So it's pretty simple, just like that. Alright, and now what you can do, you can cable manage it a bit. I'll go around the other way, completely your choice. Your cooler. Sorry if my head's in the way, it probably is, but no. Next, I think we're going to install our RAM. Alright everyone, so it's time for the next step. That's RAM. So what you need to do is get your RAM out of the box. Now you need to make sure that your RAM is compatible with your motherboard. So you need to make sure that the speed of the RAM is good for your CPU. And you need to find out that the type like DDR4 and DDR3, you need to find out if that's compatible with your motherboard. Okay, so what you want to do is I've only got one stick of RAM. Now, that's okay for mum and dad because they won't be actually taking advantage of dual channel. But if you've got two sticks, what you need to do is you just need to put one in the second slot and another in the last slot, so like this. Now, if you're like me and only have one stick of RAM, what you want to do is you want to open up the first slot. Now, some motherboards, both of these tabs push out, and like this one, only one on this side pushes out. Now, to do that, you literally just get your finger and push it to the side and it'll clip out. Now, the second bit is, you want to line your RAM up correctly. Now, as you can see, this has got a little notch right here. And you might be able to see on the motherboard, it's got a little notch here. Now, what you want to do is you want to line it up and find out which way it goes. Now, my RAM goes this way because it's slightly off center, and you can tell on the motherboard that this notch is slightly off center this way. So then you know how it goes in. Now what you want to do is you want to line it up with the little slots in the DIMM, and then you go down and you push down and it should clip back in. There we go. We'll give it a bit more. There we go. So my RAM is now installed. Okay, now this doesn't apply to you, but if you have an M.2 SSD, what you need to do is you need to get it out of the box and make sure to get the screw from your motherboard box out for it. And then what you want to do is you want to measure your M.2 SSD and make sure to put this little mounting post in the right hole. Now, as you can see, there's two holes for the length of the SSD. This one is usually in the right spot, but if you have a smaller one or a bigger one, and if it's in one of these for this motherboard, you'll have to move this. Now, as you can see, maybe, it's got a little Phillips head thing on the front. So that means you can put your screwdriver in and move it. Now, then what you need to do is you need to install it on an angle and push it down, and with the screw that's in the motherboard box, you just screw it in. And then you're done with that. But I don't have one, so sorry, it's a little harder if you don't know how to do it, but I might put an example in from my other PC build video. Okay everyone, so now what you want to do is you want to get your case, and you want to take the side panels off. So I'm going to take both my front and back side panels off, and then we'll just put them somewhere. A good tip is that if you have your case box, a good tip is to put your side panels in the box in between the polystyrene, just to protect either if you have a tempered glass or just acrylic side panel. It's good for protecting that from getting cracked or just getting scratched. So then you just want to take them off, and you want to lay your case down on its working surface. Also, when you're opening the case, look in the back and make sure that if there's a white box full of stuff, now you'll find lots of mounting posts and screws in there. So it's often found in the hard drive caddy or just in the power supply shroud. So you can pull that out for later as well. As you can see, I've got one in here. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to lay it down, and you want to get, unless your motherboard has a built-in I/O shield, like it's got something like this, but it's already it's like pre-installed, so you don't have to install it. Now, unless it's got that, what you want to do is you want to look in your motherboard box and find something that looks like this. And down here you can see that there is a little sort of hole that you're probably not sure what it's for. Now this goes in there. So what it does is it kind of clicks in there, and that gives you a sort of nicer looking rear, and you know. So what you want to do next is you want to line it up with your motherboard like this and make sure which way it goes in. And then you want to kind of put it in on an angle. They're pests to install, but you want to put it in on an angle and you want to push it in. Now you probably can't see this very well, so just trust me, you gotta put it on an angle and push it in. They're a bit annoying to try and install, but once you eventually get it, you're good for the next step. Okay everyone, now it's almost time to install the motherboard. Now, before you start installing it, what you need to do is you need to look in your white box or whatever box you get in your case and look for some sort of mounting post. Now I've put mine in plastic bags so they don't fall out, because that box is has gone through a little wear and tear. But you can just put some on the table, and then what you can do is you can look for them. Now they look like this. They've got a little thread. They've got thread on the end, and they look like that. Now what they do is they go into these holes down here. I'll just get the lamp. They go into these holes in there to make it easier so you can screw your motherboard into something. Now what you want to do is you want to get these and you want to screw them into those holes. Now make sure that your motherboard is that big. So you want to find out what size your motherboard is. You might know from the size from buying it, but as you can see, it's got little letters, and mine is a micro ATX board. So what I need to do is I need to install these into the micro ATX holes. Pretty easy, they just screw in Now you might want to get something to help screw it in because sometimes they do come out, but that's okay. Right, now what you want to do is you want to get your motherboard and you kind of want to put it in on an angle like this, and you kind of want to put the top ports in the I/O shield. Then you kind of want to, and then you want to push, and they should all fit in the I/O shield. Okay, right, now you've just installed your motherboard, so it's time to screw them in. Now you want to get a heap of screws, just lay them out and install the screws. Now by looking, you'll find all the screw holes by looking, and you'll have, it'll look a little different, and also you can see the thread on the other side. Like you've got one here, no thread, so it's not a motherboard screw, you don't screw anything into it. But this one has the motherboard post on the other side. Now you just look at your motherboard and you got to figure out where all the screws are. I'm going to time lapse this bit because no one likes it. And also it's literally just screwing the motherboard in, you should probably get that. But anyway, then once we finish that, we'll start doing other things to the case. Okay everyone, so that looks pretty good. Now, this is not always the same for everyone, but this is the order I like to do it. Now, I would rather install my solid state drive right now. Right, so what you need for the SSD installation is 4 screws for most of them. So just get 4 screws, easy to find. Then get your SATA cables that look like this, and they're in usually for MSIs, they're in a bag, and get your solid state drive. Now all cases are different most cases are different when you're installing your SSD, but I want to install mine, or mum and dad's right here, because it's not a bad looking SSD. And it's just easier because that means we can get rid of the hard drive caddy, so we don't have to so we've got more room for cable management. Now get your SSD out of the box and remove this before installing for this one. Most of them should have that. And then what you want to do is you want to line it up, and I would put it up like this because there's a nice cable cut out for SSDs up there, and you just want to line the screws up at the back, and then you want to screw it in with confidence. Okay, so it's easier to install it in a star pattern because that means that the SSD won't move around while you're installing it too much. Okay, so I'm gonna just time lapse installing the SSD because it seems not to be going pretty easily, but we'll just keep trying and we'll time lapse it. Alright everyone, so after a little bit of work trying to get it to fit, I've ended up screwing it in this side and it's on the other side, as you can see. Now if you are using a SATA SSD like me or hard drive, you'll need some of these. So I'll put this in the video. So just pull them out of the bag first. I'll get them eventually. Okay, so here they are. Get them out of the bag. Now what you want to do is look under the SSD. Now, if I tip, it's up there. Now, you probably can't see this, but I'll try and make it easy to see. It's very hard to see on camera, but in there you've got these little SATA ports or something like that. I'm not really sure what they're called, but what you do is you get this cable and plug it into the smaller one. Now, it's pretty easy. There's an L on the port and there's an L on the cord as well. So, if I can get this to go in focus, you can see in that photo, it's got that little L. And on the port of the SSD, it also has an L that looks like it would plug this into. Now, what you want to do is get your cable through wherever it is, and you want to try it and plug it in. Now, lining up the L. This is a pretty easy job when you've got lots of workplaces lots of room to work with. Now I've just got that in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it back through and I'm going to plug it into a header on a motherboard. Now the headers on the motherboard are right in there, and this will plug into them like this. If we just get that, it'll plug into them. Now I'm just going to cable manage it a bit and go through and go to the back of the case and then through back and then back to the front, just to make it look nicer and not look like a pre-built. Pre-builts always look like that. unless they're something like a well done HP pavilion, and then you just want to plug it in. Sorry if I haven't given you enough detail on that, but hopefully I did. Okay. Now, there we go. Now that that's plugged in, we can just turn it around, and later on in the video we can do a bit of cable managing. Okay, next step. Alright everyone, so the next step is to get your power supply. Here's mine. Okay, so I'm going to unbox it. Get the power supply and all the cords out. Okay, here it is. And then get our cord, we'll just put it separate for now. Then it comes with a few screws that you can screw your power supply in with. Okay, right. Now the first thing I would do is I would undo this thing keeping all the cables together, because you're going to need more length on them. Okay, now if you have a semi-modular or fully modular power supply, this will be much different for you, but you'll have to find out where all the plugs plug in. That's where you could search it up or in a video. I'm sorry, I've never actually used one before, but yeah. Once you get that, it's pretty simple. Now just get your cables looking a lot like this, straight. And what you want to do is get your front panel I/O cables out, and you want to figure out which way you want your power supply to go. Now, as you can see right there, my case has ventilation and a dust filter down the bottom. So, that's where I want my fan on my power supply to go. So, that's the fan right here. Now, if your case does not have any ventilation, I would recommend facing it up. Now, it's not great. If your case doesn't have ventilation down the bottom, it probably doesn't have a power supply shroud, because that would mean that if it did have a power supply shroud still, that's probably not a good case. But if it doesn't have ventilation down the bottom, I'd put it at the top. But since mine does, I'm going to put it down the bottom. So installing it's pretty easy. What you do is you just put it the right way, then slide it in like this. Now some are different. Some there's a little bracket around here with thumb screws. You take the thumb screws off and then you get this bracket. Then what you do is you screw it onto the power supply, slide it in like putting the cables in here and then like that, and then you thumb screw it on. Now that's not the case with my case, but as if you do have that, that's how it goes. But with mine, you just slide it in. It's pretty simple. Line it up with the screw holes at the back. Now, it takes a little bit of aligning to get right because you've got all the cables dragging behind it. But there we go. Okay, then you get the screws that come with the power supply, or screws, if you don't have any with the power supply, screws that come with the case, and you screw it in. So, probably a star pattern again just to make sure they all stay in line. This is pretty easy. So this, I'm not sure how this tutorial is going to go for a lot of you, but hopefully it's okay. Tell me in the comments if you're having issues. I'll try and get back to you as quick as I can too. So pretty easy process there. Now what you want to do is you want to spread your power supply cables out, and this is a pretty easy part, but if I focus on all the cables, I'm going to tell you which ones are which. Now this cable is for the CPU 24 pin. Now if I turn the case around, this here, I'll just make sure you can see, this here is the CPU 24 pin. Now, get that CPU 24 pin, get it through the best place you can, and you might notice that there's a bit that splits off. Now, what you want to do is they kind of join on, and then they form one cable. Then what you want to do is you want to find out which way they go. Then you just want to try and install it. Now it's a little pesky with that extra splitting cable, but it's okay. Okay. Alright, so it's a bit of work, but eventually I got it the right way. Now a good way to find out if it's the right way or not is to look on which side the clip is. And it's going to be the right side if the clip's on right. Alright, now you can route it through there. Okay, so next is an even harder one. Now this is for the connector up here. Now, what you need to do is you need to get a cord that looks like this. It doesn't say PCIe anywhere, by the way, because they kind of do look a bit similar. Now you want to do the same. You want to hook it up with each other a bit. Put it through the top. And then you want to try and hook it up. Now this one takes a little bit of time, but once you're done, it's always nice. Just make sure it's in completely. There you go. I'm still looking at 24 pin, I think. Alright. Next is SATA cables. Now this is for SSD if you have one, like mine. Okay. So this is what a SATA cable looks like. like that. And then what you want to do is you want to line the L up, because they've both got L's. You're going to line it up and somehow get it through. Okay, so I decided while we've got it unscrewed, we'll install the cable and tell you how to. So basically you just get your cable, line the L up that you can see on the here. So you can see that, you might see on your SSD and your cable that it has an L, and basically you just want to line that up and you want to plug it in like that. So, easy done. I'll get to installing the SSD back the other way, and there we go. Alright, so this one doesn't apply to everyone, but I have a Molex fan in this. So if you have any Molex enabled device, make sure to get the cord, and if it's a rear fan, I reckon that you would want to go from the top one. Then you get your cable that looks like this and plug it into your cable that looks like this. It's pretty simple. You'll probably see how it works. It's the right shape. Then it just plugs in like that, and you can ignore it. Alright, now cable management I wouldn't do until you install your graphics card if you have one. So I'm going to get a new view, and I'm going to tell you how to install a Wi-Fi card in this case, or a graphics card in someone else's case. Okay, so first get your graphics card out of the box. Now, what I do is, I'm just going to use the Wi-Fi card for an example because it still works, because I mean, they both use PCIe Express. Now, if you have a Wi-Fi card, before installing, I would recommend you to just unscrew the antenna, because it'll make it way easier. Okay, so if you've got a graphics card, you might see these expansion slots right here. Now, what I'd recommend you to do is line your graphics card up and see which ones you need to pull out. Now, some of them that have screws on them, you just unscrew them, but the ones that don't, you break them. Now, before you do that, you have to take this little cover over. It's usually held in with thumb screws. Usually you need to take that out. Okay, and then what you need to do is, once you've uninstalled them, you line your graphics card, I'll just use the Wi-Fi card for an example, up with the, up with the slot, and you push it in. Now, since it's a graphics card, it'll have a longer thing there, so this thing will clip in. Okay, now if you're on the Wi-Fi card side, like me, you just line it up in this black, smaller slot, line it up with the screw hole here, and push it in. Now, that should be installed right now. Then what you do is you get one of the screws from your case, and then at the back you just get a screw, and then you screw it in like this. Now, what you need to do, what you need to do for a Wi-Fi card is reinstall the antenna. Pretty simple, it's just a screwing one. And I'd recommend putting it straight for just screwing it in. And do that. Then you can move it up. Alright, now if you're using a Wi-Fi card, that's installed, or if you're using a graphics card. Now, I think it's time to put this cover back on. And then after that, it's time to do some cable management, because I reckon that your your cable management hasn't been done yet. But what you want to do is basically get your cable ties out and you might want to get a few more out. Actually, sorry, before we do that, what we want to do is we want to get our cords here. Now these are all for the front panel, like your USB here, power button, reset switch, and 2 audio outs. Now what you want to do is you want to find a hole to bring them through. Now, I'm going to try and name all of these. Okay. Now, this is where your USB 3 goes. This is where all your front panel I/O goes, like power button, reset switch, and and lights. And down here is where your audio goes from my motherboard. All of them are different, so consult your motherboard manual to find out where they go. Now I'll name all the cords. This is your USB 3.0. These little pesky things are your front panel I/O. And this is your audio. Right, now what you want to do is you want to get this USB 3.0 and put it through the best cutout you can find. Closest to the port, usually. Then you want to find where there's a little notch thing, and where the notch thing is on the USB 3 connector or header. Now, once you've found that, you basically just line it up and push it in. Now you push it back through, and there we go. Now we'll do HD audio because it's another easy one. Now what you want to do is you just want to find the best cutout. Now it's better if you install these before the power supply, but I could just squeeze mine through. Okay, luckily, because I had to make it, put it through for my computer I couldn't fit it through, but this still works. Okay, now you want to find where there's a missing pin on the header. Now, sorry you can't see much I don't think, but there's a missing pin on this header and there's a missing pin hole on this connector. Now you want to find that and you want to line it up with this hole, and then you want to just line it up, plug it in. Alright, then you've done that. Now, time for your front panel I/O. Now this one's a hard one because they're just so annoying. But what you want to do is you want to thread it through, and I'll zoom it in because this one's pretty hard to see. Alright, so I can see that this isn't very clear. But what you want to do is you want to get your motherboard manual out. Now, then you want to find a page that's got some pins and some cords that look like this. Now I'm going to bring the lamp in here so you can see it more easily. But you should have a motherboard manual that has a whole page dedicated to these. Now, if you don't, there is actually a little diagram on your motherboard close to it. But it's a little harder to see, and also the motherboards is a bit more straightforward. But if you do know what it says, you can use that too. Now, you want to get your cords. You just want to so there's a power plus and power minus. Okay everyone, so cable management is basically just tying down to the, putting cable ties to the tie down points on the case. So this is where you're on your own, but it's not a hard thing to do. It's basically just, there's no specific way to do it, so I'll just time lapse me cable managing. Alright everyone, so I think it's time to test to see if it turns on. I'm really hoping it does, but anyway. 3, 2, 1. It's a good sign. That cooler is actually really quiet. It's cool. Literally. I know, it's terrible. Alright then, I think we're gonna get a monitor and have a look now. So, I'll get the monitor and we'll see if it, brings up the BIOS. I'll just leave it running for a bit because that means that the AMD cores take a little, the AMD systems take a little while to get into the BIOS anyway, but then we'll get the monitor and have a look. Okay everyone, so before we start installing Windows and stuff like that, I'm just going to quickly swap the memory. It wants to go in the second slot, even though when I searched it up it said it should go in the first slot, so I'm just going to do what it says. But we'll just switch it over. I'll put that in the, I'll put that in the part where we're doing memory, but see how it goes now. See if it still wants it to go in the, see if it actually does want it to go in the second slot. But it made it to the BIOS anyway, which was the weird part, but, you know. See, we're in the BIOS, so we've got the click BIOS. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go memory. Yep, that's all good. It's actually 3200 megahertz, so we'll enable XMP if I remember how to. I'm pretty sure we go into let me try and just find XMP wherever. Yeah, the profile's off. So let's just go. No, XMP isn't supported. So we'll just turn that on. But anyway, that's okay. So 2666 megahertz should be fine for them. But it looks pretty good. So we'll just exit this. We'll install Windows 10. So we'll just time lapse that. Since I've already done a video, I'll put it in the suggested up there, or up there wherever it is, on installing Windows. But anyway. Thanks for watching everyone. As you can see, I've set it up even more. It's not going to be permanent here, but just wanted to get the speakers going. It's a pretty fun build this, and I'm sure Mum and Dad will love it. So thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video.